All right, everybody. Good afternoon for those of you who are on the East Coast or in the middle of the country. Some of you may still be in good morning mode. That's great too. Welcome to our panel on our Workers Speak Out panel on right to recall. My name is Clayton Sinyai, and I am the executive director of the Catholic Labor Network. I'm going to say a few things before we get started here. One housekeeping matter. If you are not speaking, please put yourself on mute so that background noise doesn't interfere with the presenters. We have a good sized crowd here today. From all over the country. And I want to welcome all of you. There's still people coming in. Let me say a few words about the issue before we get started and how the Catholic Labor Network got involved in this work. As you probably realize, very few industries have been harder hit by the pandemic than the hotel and hospitality industry. Almost entirely closed initially, and workers sent home. They were given support temporarily, like other workers who were laid off by the pandemic, but that aid wound up. The supplemental unemployment benefits wound up in July, and these workers have been struggling to get by. But we're here to talk about something that's emerged more recently as a major problem. The hotels, a number of the hotels have floated the possibility that when they do reopen, rather than simply rehiring the workers that they have furloughed, they're talking about hiring new employees, hiring replacement workers, possibly at a lower wage. Or making the old employees apply again anew and start over at their careers. Now, the career employees are fighting for right to recall. They're asking hotels to agree to at least in the union, the Hotel Workers Union, Unite Here, has been asking hotels to agree to contract language that would protect their right to return. And when this hasn't been possible, they have been going to cities and states asking city councils and county boards and state legislatures to enact right to recall in law so that these career workers don't lose their jobs as a result of the pandemic shutdown. So we're going to hear from some of the workers who are in this situation, some who have effectively organized to preserve their right to recall, and many others who are trying to do it as we speak. The Catholic Labor Network has been working with the Hotel Workers Union in different cities, and these right to recall laws, by the way, would protect both union and non-union employees who have been displaced. And we're going to be hearing from a few of these workers, starting with a couple of workers from Chicago. I would like to start with Adrian Aguirre, who is who works at the Omni in Chicago, or has worked there a long time in better times as a server and a bartender. Adrian, are you with us?
Yes, I am. I'm right here.
Oh, great. Can you tell us a little bit about your career and your job at the Omni Chicago?
Well, I've been working for the Chicago Omni Hotels for past 23 years. I work as a server. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous right now.
That's okay.
I got some nerves on the side. So basically, we got the union last year. We organized a union last year. It was very, very scary to get the union because the company had a really, really hard on us when we started organizing. And they hired this company, anti-union. I don't know how to call them. It's got to be a group or company. And they were really.
I'm sorry. Can you unmute yourself? I think I hit a wrong button.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So I was saying that I was. So I've been working there for 20 years. We organized the union last year. We won the union. So now the company wanna only give us. They propose to only give us 6 months recall rights, and this we stopped working in March. So they only give us 6 months. They only want to give us 6 months recall rights to go back to work. And Sheila saying, no, we got to push it for more. So finally, we got 2 years recall rights. So for that, we still have our jobs. So thanks to Sheila and the union, everybody that I know, they're works in the hotels right now. They have no unions at all. They're all got fired. They don't have a job anymore. So I think it's very sad to see all these that have been working for companies for 5, 6, 10, 23 years. If I have a picture of, I show you what I look like when I started working in the company 23 years ago, you will say there's a kid. They give all his life to a company. And this is over 23 years of my life I give to the company. And I will be very, very depressed and sad. The company will say, hey, you have no job anymore. You're fired. For what reason? It wasn't my fault. It wasn't nobody's fault, the pandemic. So I think having you is a great thing for everybody. And we hope everybody else that has no union and work for a company for so many years, they be able to go back to work to feed their families and be, be part of society again. I think that's all I can say.
That's excellent. I'm pleased and proud that you and your coworkers were successful in organizing a union, and it meant you had an opportunity to address this issue at the bargaining table and get the remarkable 2 years of recall rights, which is long enough that you guys will outlast the pandemic and get your jobs back when this is over. We also have with us another hotel worker from Chicago who's in a different situation, Mr. Carlos Perez. Carlos, are you with us? I see you on the list, but you may have to unmute yourself. We also have with us Sheila Gaynor from the local. Sheila, while Carlos is getting unmuted, can you tell us a little bit about why he's with us?
Sure, I can see him. I think he's just trying to unmute himself on the phone. I think he's looking for the. So Carlos, just look for the microphone to unmute yourself. Okay. So as Adrian said, Carlos is one of the hotel workers that has reached out to us in the since the pandemic has started, but most particularly in the last 2 months. We've had a lot of non-union folks coming to us saying that they haven't just been laid off, but they've been completely terminated from their jobs. Meaning they lose health insurance, they lose their seniority, they lose whatever gains they've made while working. And it's a huge difference between being laid off. And it's something that we've seen more recently. I think when the pandemic started, companies felt, oh, this might be just 2 or 3 months. But as it's gotten longer and hotel companies are looking at a Chicago winter, the decision has been to terminate folks. And most of the folks that we've talked to have been told to reapply when their hotel reopens, with no guarantee that they'll actually be able to receive the job that they had previously. So we have one woman who worked at a hotel for 21 years and was told to reapply, but can't be guaranteed if she's gonna receive again the job that she had for 21 years. So Carlos is gonna, I think he's still trying to unmute himself, but this is what we've seen is what we fear will happen is this will be a massive step backwards for a huge group of workers in Chicago, because all of the gains that people have made in their wages and their benefits and the accrual of vacation time or sick time or whatever they've made, all of that is going to be wiped away in kind of one fell swoop. And it will be at the end of this pandemic, if we don't figure out how to solve this problem, we will have a massive group of people facing a really difficult choice and a real, I fear, race to the bottom to get back to work in these hotels. And it will just be a huge moment for these companies to do what they've wanted to do for a long time, which is cut wages and take away the gains that we've made in cities like Chicago and Baltimore and LA to make these jobs middle-class jobs. This will be a huge step backwards. So Carlos, were you able, so if you look for the red mic, oh, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Perez, thank you for joining us. Glad you were able to get on. So tell us a little bit about your job and what your situation is now.
Yes, my situation is, was working for, the hotel was down because, the pandemic. And they said I wasn't working for like almost 4 months. And after that, they called me again. You know what? You can start working. And I was working maybe for 3 weeks, and they fired me. They said you don't have any insurance, you don't have any benefits for this company anymore. So I feel so mad because I have family to support. And then the worst things, they was hiring the agency people. So this is the worst thing because I can do this job and the other people was doing my job for me. So
they brought in like a temp agency or whatever to put workers in the job in your place.
Yeah, in my place.
Ah, and that was at the Hyatt Century in
Hyatt Century. Yeah. So this is not fair, and I think thank you for your support and they listen. This is my.
So you guys could use a law like they're looking at in some of the other cities about guaranteeing people a right to return after the pandemic.
It's going to be great.
Thank you. We also have with us Carlos Armayo from Local 26 in Boston. Mr. Armayo, would you like to give us an update and tell us how things are in Boston and how they compare to what we've just heard about in Chicago?
Sure. Thank you, Clayton, and thanks for having me. So I want to talk briefly about what's been going on in New England, but more broadly in the industry overall.
I don't think I introduced you. You were.
Oh, I'm the president of Local 26 in Boston and in Rhode Island. So the industry overall, we faced unprecedented layoffs coming off of the pandemic. And basically what happened was the travel restrictions and shutdown orders went into place in March, restrictions that we've been very supportive of. And the consequence, unintended, I believe, obviously, of that is that in New England, tens of thousands, nationally, hundreds of thousands of hospitality workers have been left without a job. And as the pandemic has become very prolonged, and as the economic situation has gotten very, very challenging for our industry that relies on travel and events, we are looking at a very long time horizon for individuals to be able to return to work. I believe that hospitality workers were among the first people to be laid off in the economy of the pandemic, and they will be among the last people to return to work. And so that is why the right to return, the right to come back is so important for people in this industry. People in this industry enjoy, particularly in the union, but frankly in high union density markets, even in non-union, enjoy very good wages and very good benefits that allow people to support their families. They are Black and brown workers, women, and first generation immigrants. And these jobs are not easily recreated. And the danger that lies with a protracted layoff is that individuals will not be allowed to return to their jobs. They will be replaced with younger workers. They will be replaced with workers who will be brought in at lower wage rates or lower benefit rates. And frankly, in a union context, we have employers who will cynically use the pandemic and the displacement of the workforce to leverage the union contracts to negotiate for worse agreements and to force employees to agree to worse job conditions in exchange for their jobs being returned. So that's why this is so important, and that's what's a consequence here. Frankly, I do think this is a policy question, is not a union question. I think the pandemic was unexpected. The action of local state governments, not the federal government, frankly, but local and state governments is what caused the displacement of these workers. And it really is incumbent on local and state governments to now do the right thing, to step up and to ensure that these workers who were displaced as an unintended consequence of the pandemic be allowed to return to their jobs that they previously held. I did want to share, we had an issue here in Boston, specifically at the Four Seasons, which is a non-union property, but that matches union wage and benefit standards, where a very, very large number, and I'll put it in the chat, of the workers were permanently laid off and told the only way to return to their jobs would be to reapply. Fortunately, those workers stood up, they spoke out, they worked together with us in the union and with other community organizations, and frankly, a lot of high profile clients, and got the Four Seasons to reverse their position. But that's just one example of what I believe these companies are willing to do and will continue to be willing to do going forward if there isn't a comprehensive fix on this issue that is a quite important issue for the economy, particularly of regions like New England, where tourism, travel, and events are a very significant piece of the regional economy. So thanks very much. That's sort of a brief overview of what's going on.
Well, thank you very much. And that was an important point you mentioned, that in the case of these particular jobs, these are jobs that are largely occupied by women, largely occupied by people of color or recent immigrants, and they're not easy to recreate. I'd like to also, I'd like to, another place where the city is working on potential right to recall legislation to address this issue. Again, to address the needs of a workforce that is really needs these jobs and needs to get back to work after the pandemic, is in Baltimore City. And we have some a group from Local 7 in Unite Here Local 7 in Baltimore City with us today, officers and members. Roxy Herbikian?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, okay. I'm here. Thank you, Clayton, and thank you for organizing this event. It really is an unprecedented time and a huge problem. In Baltimore, the hospitality industry is sort of the #3 industry. Baltimore was a very heavy industry town, has lost a lot of its steel and auto manufacturing, and over the last few decades has been reinventing itself as a convention, visitor, and hospitality center, and it is the #3 industry in town. Much like you've heard from the other cities, from Boston and Chicago, we have been negotiating with the union companies to extend the recall rights. But we have heard from a number of the non-union hotels, and you're going to hear from some workers from one of them, that either they were being given the runaround about coming back to work, or they were outright terminated. So we do have a bill that has passed the city council We are waiting now to see if the Mayor Young, who is a lame duck mayor, will veto it, or will he let it go into law? If nothing happens by November 16th, it will become the law. And we're very hopeful for that. And if it doesn't, we're going to reintroduce it with the new mayor. But fighting on the front lines, we have some workers here today from a hotel. It has a very long name. It's called the Residence Inn by Marriott Baltimore at the Johns Hopkins Medical Campus. And it is a hotel, as you can tell from its names, that very much services Johns Hopkins Hospital, which is right across the street.
Yes.
And it's about 3 years old. The workers contacted us about concerns, including recall and including standards, including COVID protocol and standards. So I'm really glad we have with us today two of those workers. One is sitting here with me, Tabitha Gossage, who was who still is, but is waiting to come back to work, a housekeeper, and also Connie Mote, who's a server. So I'd like to just introduce Tabitha.
So hi, my name's Tabitha Gossage, and I worked at the Residence Inn at Johns Hopkins for about a good 3 years. I worked there from the beginning, like 2 weeks before they opened. So I helped like set up the rooms and everything. And so I basically got laid off in March too. And ever since, I just been trying to call back to get my job back, and I was replaced with temps too. And I keep on trying to call to get my job back, but I keep on getting the runarounds, and they keep on saying that they have no work, but we know it's work there. So
There's an added element to this hotel, which it is a hotel which received PPP money, the Paycheck Protection Program money. They received that money and represented that they were going to use that money to reemploy some 78 workers, which has not been the case.
yeah.
So that's another issue that we're pursuing with regard to this hotel.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been a long road these last 8 months fighting to try to get back into work and not knowing where to go or what to do, because I have 3 small kids and it's hard. I need to get back to work.
So
Thanks for
For
Rox.
sure.
She's the best.
So this hotel, while they're telling the housekeepers there's no work, has gone from 4 to 6 and now 8 temporary agency employees working full time.
So they're carrying out the threat that that they were floating before, that they're going to start over with a new workforce.
Yes.
Yes.
And is Connie from the same hotel?
Yeah, I'm from the same hotel, from the Residence Inn by Baltimore Marriott at the Johns Hopkins Medical Campus.
Okay. About your situation.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for letting me speak. Coming from like a legacy of Catholic freedom fighters, it feels really great to be on screen with you all. But
Oh, excellent.
we're currently, the situation as it stands, we delegated the boss about 2 weeks ago with our demands to unionize after being repeatedly given the runaround regarding recall rights as well as COVID safety. The parties that have been, they have these outdoor events. They're hosting, 100 people, 125 people in like large gatherings with like no proper social distancing measures. And so, as a runner going throughout the hotel, delivering food from the kitchen to the lobby bar, and then having to kind of like navigate my way among like whole bunches of drunk people, a lot of them not wearing masks. They've recently introduced cigar smoking on the outdoor rooftop area, which was originally a no smoking area. And 2 of my coworkers are pregnant, like they're with child. And so, there's COVID, there's cigar smoke, there's these huge parties. And so the servers that have been called back, the ones that were lucky enough, to be hand chosen to come back for like a few hours a week, are either that's where you make your money, or you're like me and you have two, compromised roommates, and I can't, expose myself in that way. And so instead my checks are like $150 for lobby bar running. And that's fine. I understand that there are so few hours. I think what's really messed up though is that like upon insisting upon like better health and safety, and also to recall workers so we don't have temp workers, because we do have like a temp runner and a temp cook. And I know that people are waiting for a callback. And they're hiring temp workers. They're also lying to us about, like, we ask the people, like, are you trying to come back? And they're like, yeah, we're coming back. We're just waiting for a call. And they're telling us that they're calling our coworkers and no one wants to come back because everybody wants unemployment money. Which is just like, it adds, it further twists the knife, because if I hadn't answered or if I hadn't been called back and I knew that I was being like bad mouthed to my coworkers, it just feels like intensely personal in a way. And also just like in standing in solidarity with the housekeeping department, I think there are like 8 temp people on the schedule right now. And I know that like 4 people are on a weekly call with us talking about wanting to go back, Tabitha included. And, wanting to go back and like calling the general manager and calling the head of sales and calling the assistant general manager, like there's no accountability. And so there are no real managers, there's no accountability. And this was a hotel that was meant to boost up the economy of East Baltimore by providing good jobs, good stable jobs in the city. And they're using a pandemic that was no one's fault to lay off a whole swath of like mostly, or I think all women, like all mothers with children to feed, and giving them kind of no recourse for reentry into the hotel. So it's pretty grave. We're, just trying to keep strong, but it's a tough situation. And the food and beverage workers are not doing badly if you're doing the banquets and if you can just swallow it enough. I mean, we talk about it privately, but then it's hard because on one hand you do have like a paycheck, and on the other hand you have, COVID. So.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you. So as Roxy mentioned at the beginning, there is an ordinance that has passed the city council in Baltimore and is sitting on the mayor's desk. And I wanted to mention that because a lot of you on the call may be impressed with what you've heard and want to know how you can help. And as it happens, in the case of Baltimore, Catholic Labor Network was able to find a way to help, in that someone on the call with us here today, Nancy Conrad and Father Ty Hullinger, were very effective in organizing 9 different parishes to sign a joint letter, 9 different parishes within the city to sign a letter to the mayor asking him to sign this legislation. He still hasn't acted yet. Nancy, I know you weren't expecting to say anything. Would you like to say a few words? Nancy, if you're wanting to, you would have to unmute. Nancy Conrad.
Only that we're just hopeful that he lets it sit on his desk until the day passes. If he vetoes it, well, we're ready to go back and fight. Again, there are still others who weren't available to sign the letter who are waiting to hear. And I think a few other people did send letters of their own in. So I think he knows that there are people watching, and we just have to be prepared. Hopefully he'll let it slide and do nothing. So
I just want to say thank you very much. I mean, this is thousands and thousands and thousands of workers, and our union early on started to raise money for direct relief for folks, and we've done a few of these direct relief events, giving people food, giving people Safeway gift cards. And the event we did last month, it was just so clear that things are getting much more dire. And for people to know at least they're going to have a job to return to is huge. But as Carlos said, there's a long stretch ahead of us before people come back to work, and for the few that can come back, to be insulted by not even being able to return when they do need workers, it's very serious, and I think it is a big policy question for the city. Thank you so much.
Yes, Catholic social teaching has upheld the right and dignity of workers and their obligations for the longest time. I want to hark back to something mentioned by Mr. Aguirre in his opening remarks about how many years he had worked there. Employees in social teaching, Catholic social teaching, are obligated to provide a fair day's work for a fair day's wage, but in return, the company owes its loyalty to them. These workers are the ones who built these businesses and made them the profitable institutions that they are. And the company in turn has obligations toward them, not to throw them away when an opportunity presents itself to replace you with someone cheaper, but you're part of a community when you're part of a workplace, and your contributions should be valued, and you should be retained. I'd like to open it up to any questions that anyone has for any of the speakers at this point. I think our group is just small enough that someone can speak up if they want to. If we start talking over each other, we can go to the raise hands thing. But anybody have any questions they want to start with?
I think it's great in Baltimore that these 9 parishes, their pastors and lay leaders, were able to organize and address the issues there. I'm curious, was anyone at the archdiocesan level, like the Archbishop, were they involved?
Can you introduce yourself first?
Sure, Father Gene Polsternich in Milwaukee.
Okay. I don't think the Archdiocese was directly involved. Nancy, do you have additional word on that?
No, they weren't directly involved. And actually, we haven't really spoken to the Archbishop about this. We've been beginning to work with some of the parishes and trying to build up a network, mostly of lay people and their pastors. So when we get enough strength, we will go to the Archbishop and do some lobbying. There is an auxiliary bishop who I keep informed, and he's never had anything, said anything that we should stop or that we should slow up. So I'm presuming that he is supportive, and we just have to presume that Catholic social justice is understood by our bishops until we get an opportunity to get some support from them.
Yeah, the role of lay social ministry leaders like Nancy is really critical here in many of the parishes, because frankly, the priests have there are fewer and fewer priests, and their hands are very full, even if they're sympathetic. And it requires us in lay people who are volunteer social ministry leaders to take the lead on this. And in Baltimore, Baltimore City, they have done a fantastic job of that.
And yet there's so much more that should be done. Every parish should be supportive, but people don't seem to understand what the social doctrine of the church is when it comes to worker justice. So.
Mr. Armayo, have you all worked with the church at all in the Boston area? I know y'all are active with the Labor Guild.
Yeah, we've been active with the Labor Guild. We have not worked on this issue specifically. We have not worked with the church in previous campaigns. The Harvard campaign that we did, the strike that we did there. We had members of the church participate in that, also on some of the new organizing campaigns, but on this particular campaign, we have not so far.
Hello, my name is Danielle Bafile, and I live in the Bay Area of California. And I work for a healthcare provider organization, and I work specifically with a lot of Unite Here groups out in the Bay Area. And I'm wondering, you're focusing on Chicago and the East Coast. I'm wondering if you're hearing anything similar out on the West Coast, because we haven't heard that some of the issues that you're talking about come up yet.
There actually was a major effort, a right to recall legislation bill passed through the assembly, and Governor Newsom vetoed it.
It has been some local jurisdictions where it's in effect. I believe Los Angeles, I believe Santa Monica. I don't know everywhere, but it passed in some local jurisdictions. And then there was the statewide bill. And then, as Clayton said, the governor vetoed it.
I know that the Jesuits were a key organizer in the state.
I think they're trying to work on something in San Jose as well. I don't know how far it's gotten along, but.
Okay.
That's right.
And who's this speaking?
My name is Danielle Bafile, and I'm with a large provider organization in California. And we work with a lot of I work with the San Francisco folks, the Oakland folks, Peninsula. One of my other colleagues is on here. She has the folks in the San Jose area. And, you know, it's been pretty challenging, as it is everywhere. Our trust funds have been having to make some very difficult decisions about benefits. And, you know, so we're, you know, really focused on trying to help these folks retain their coverage. So this topic was very timely because we haven't heard a lot about really what's been happening with the right to recall. So we appreciate the opportunity to listen in.
Well, I will say, as Father Gene was beginning to mention, that Local 11, Unite Here Local 11 in Los Angeles had done a fantastic job of outreach to Jesuit institutions across the West Coast, and dozens of Jesuits, as well as faith leaders from other traditions, joined in writing letters and even making a caravan to the governor, trying to persuade him to sign the bill. And the Governor Newsom is Catholic. He should have been receptive to this argument, but in this case, he was more receptive to the hotel industry lobbyists.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Hi, this is Joseph in Los Angeles. I represent the Labor Today newspaper. And I was wondering if Local 11, which is the jurisdiction around here in Hollywood, if they had publicity on this issue, because I would like to write something up about it and put it in the paper.
Perhaps Father Kiley could put them in touch with Local 11.
Okay, that'd be terrific.
Father Kiley, is that something you could do?
Sure, I'll put it on the chat here. I'll get contact.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, feel free to shoot me an email about what interests about this, and I can follow up with them as well.
Thank you.
This is Lou Weeks in Chicago. I'm the Executive Vice President of Local 1. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Father Gene, who came down years ago to support us when we were headed toward our first strike at O'Hare Airport. He wrote a piece about the fight and it was published. We were successful in that fight, winning health insurance. And it's good to see you again, Father.
What's the picture look like, Mr. Weeks and the other folks from Chicago, about legislation through the city council or the county?
So we're looking into, we've talked to, we're thankful to have other locals that have done a really great job of passing this legislation in their cities. So we're talking to them and looking into what we can do here. We're in the middle of a big budget blowout for anyone who's paying attention to Chicago politics. But yes, we're definitely actively looking into what we can do.
Anybody else like to ask any questions for our guests, either from the union or from any of the locations? And that was Father Cleet Kiley also from Unite Here, who just shared the information on contacting Local 11. Father Cleet is immigration policy. What's your title?
Advisor, that's fine.
Advisor, okay.
Director, whatever.
Well, do any of the presenters or speakers have any final comments before we wrap up?
I just want to say thank you so much for having this forum and for inviting us. The Catholic Labor Network has long been a friend to Local 1, but I really appreciate you bringing up this topic, because for us, talking to workers and looking at this is a huge, I feel like we're about to go over a huge cliff if we don't figure out what we're going to do. And I don't hear this conversation anywhere right now. So I appreciate you bringing this up and talking about it and giving folks the chance to share their story, because the more we talk about it, the more we heat up the waters and we can actually get some relief to the folks who need it. So thank you so much.
Greetings to the friends at Local 1.
Okay. Well, the Catholic Labor Network looks forward to working with people in different cities, with the union and other worker activists in different cities who are working on this issue. We realize that the pandemic has had a rather intense impact on workers, and particularly low-income workers. Both those who are still on the job and who are exposed to a risk of infection, and those who are who have been displaced from employment, in large part in the hospitality and entertainment sectors. As my friends in the entertainment unions remind me, they also the theaters are closed, and lots of other and sports venues are closed, and a huge section of segment of workers who are frequently low income to begin with have been deprived of the wages they need to survive by this. So there's a lot of people who are going to be affected by whether we have right to recall for employees after this pandemic is over. And so I will be following up with many of you who are on this call and looking for your help as we do outreach in different cities around the country. So with that, thank you very much for joining us for our Workers Speak Out panel, and hope to see you all and talk with you in the future.
Thank you, Clayton. Look forward to continuing to work with you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Roxy.
Thank you.
Everybody. Thanks.
Bye. Hello to everyone.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Say hi to Patrick, Sheila.